Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining CyberConnect. Welcome to this career day today, and we have amazing guests as part of this panel. And we have a cyber certification prize for a random subscriber if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel and be notified. And let's just start our journey today. I want to ask the first question to the panelists. And to begin with, could you briefly introduce yourself and your current position and describe your primary responsibilities in that role?
So I'm first, I think. So I'm Peter Schawacker. I'm CEO and co-founder of Nearshore Cyber, originally hatched in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the suburbs. So good to meet you, John. Good to meet you, Larisa, Kate, Karl. Thank you, Francisco, for putting this on, and also for Philippa for this. I've been in cyber for 28 years. Last 3 of it, I've been running Nearshore Cyber. We are primarily a staffing recruiting company that concentrates on cybersecurity talent from emerging markets. I live in Mexico, a place called Oaxaca. My job is to tell people the truth about their careers and the people they're hiring to create value. So I think it's pretty good. Oh, by the way, the music was great. It reminds me of like 1990s Los Angeles. If you listen to KCRW, you remember the soundtrack to your urban adventure on KCRW. So anyway, I think next.
Yeah, hi everybody. John McNicholas. I'm outside of Philadelphia, so Peter, yeah, fellow Eagles fan, I take it. Glad to be here. I've had over 22 years in cybersecurity. I got my start in the Navy. Great, it really helped me out there. I'm a senior cybersecurity officer for a U.S. government agency. I say that because I've just been trained by OSINT, so it's a way of keeping it minimal as possible, because then you start getting emails, you start getting things like that. But yeah, I'm real happy to be here, and it's a great way to get more people involved in the cybersecurity field, because we all know we need them. Thanks.
Hi guys, my name is Larisa. Definitely not AI, definitely not a Russian spy. By day, I am a CISA, and by night, I wreak havoc on LinkedIn. I've been for 10 years in tech, and the last 5 were in cybersecurity, where I mostly deal with contracts, and I'm basically the accounting of cybersecurity. So if you don't have a technical job and you want to pivot into cybersecurity, I'm your girly. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karl Sickendick. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force. I actually just recently changed positions with the Air Force. I was in San Antonio, where I was leading a squadron of cyber capability developers, the 90th Cyber Operations Squadron, and we're the Shadow Warriors, and we created the tools that the nation's cyber operators use. So we were hackers that create tools for other hackers. That was a blast, leading that about 200-person organization. And then just, the military, every 2 years, they kind of move you around, and that's a 2-year position. So I've got a lot of boxes behind me. Hopefully you won't see them. But I've just recently moved to be a professor of systems engineering at Defense Acquisition University. So that's a portion of the government, specifically the Department of Defense, that focuses on training the rest and educating the rest of the force on how to purchase things efficiently and make the best use of people's money. And I'm going to be fortunately focusing on cyber systems and cybersecurity in this job. So just started. I'll be probably answering questions with a focus on both. Thank you. Thanks for setting this up.
Karl, congrats on the new role. Oh, my name is Kate Marshall. I run the summit events over at the SANS Institute. I have been in cyber and at SANS for almost 20 years now, and we focus on creating events that are, late breaking, community building, really just helping cybersecurity professionals level up quickly. And more recently, I've been leading different initiatives around AI integration and adoption within organizations, and just supporting AI development and adoption inside of security, and based in Denver.
Fantastic. I love that. So you all have very different backgrounds, and can come from sort of these unique environments, and just would love to start with the next question of how do you see the future of the cybersecurity workforce? Let's start with you, John.
As cybersecurity workforce, being more agile, honestly, is as we go into it, and I know everybody's AI is on the tip of everyone's tongue. I see it as a very efficient and useful tool. We have to use that properly, but it's just a tool. I don't feel like it's necessarily going to replace or turn it, upside down, but we have to learn, we have to be agile with it. We have to move with it. We have to keep learning, keep moving forward. The days of, I work on Cisco devices, I'm a network engineer, are gone. You have to look at the whole spectrum and be ready to learn something new. And that's the beauty of the field. You're always learning. Thanks.
Yeah. I'll jump in. So what we're seeing is hybrid used to mean in-person and virtual, and now hybrid is meaning AI agent plus human. And so data is starting to come out showing just how well humans and AI partnered together can achieve better outcomes inside of cybersecurity. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of this hybrid work.
Just to add to what Kate mentioned, I have the same feeling. So on the one side, we have a lot more regulations coming in, which means a lot more work for people with a legal background or for people that are passionate about it. On the other hand, we see a lot of automation and people needing to learn how to work with AI. We have these conversations every week at C-level that people have to be able to work with AI. From my experience and what I have automated in the last 3 months, the responses are pretty accurate and good. So we can expect even more than what we have up until now when it comes to AI usage.
I think from my perspective, I think that kind of ability to team with AI, I hope that it progresses to the point where it's similar to how we might team with and work with other people. And so, in cyber, especially on the very technical side, when we talk about cyber careers, we talk about a whole diversity of careers. But especially on the very technical side, I think some people get into cyber hoping, I'll just be able to interact with this computer. But really, LLMs and the rest of AI and kind of where we're going with that, like we're looking at these more in, at least what I've seen has been more in the terms of teaming. And so I think that'll continue and grow in importance, the ability to team and create teams of AI agents perhaps, but also create teams of people and work together. I think that also, instead of a little bit what John said, instead of being so specialized, we'll have to be more generalized as on the people side, or at least be able to understand a more general set of things. Technology is spread out. Internet of Things is not such a buzzword anymore, but every year that's just because the buzzwords keep getting replaced by new buzzwords, and the breadth of knowledge that you've got to have to be effective in a wide range of jobs, and especially security-related jobs, is just growing, and I think it'll continue to grow.
I think the future is likely to be like the present, but more so. What I mean by that is the extremes will become more so. The importance of one's humanity becomes elevated as we can spend more time on things that aren't mechanistic. People who sleepwalk through life, who do things that computers can do, they're in trouble if they don't change. And unfortunately, that's most people. And so, we can look to cloud computing and the cycle that we went through with that for the past 15, 20 years and see how it rhymes. And in that case, you saw a lot of people whose job was to like schlep hardware around, lose those jobs. You saw acceleration and change all over the place. But you also, and that again, like we're all picking on John here. Again, it's a Philly thing. Like we do that. There is at once a kind of increase in specialization in certain areas where like deep domain knowledge becomes very important and very valuable and hard to come by. And then you have a kind of dispersion. Like cloud people took over their own security when the security world said, no, you can't secure that. there was a period when, and to some degree, it still goes on, where people say, well, you know, that system is too important to put in the cloud. Well, I draw your attention to what just happened with like SharePoint, what's happened with Exchange over the years, where the on-prem ones were the ones that were hit. And so when security forfeited the opportunity to do work around the security of the systems that were coming in and the new ways of doing computing, the people who needed to create value with those and use those systems and operate them for the business, they just took security on their own, and they did a pretty good job. So I think you'll see the people who, to sum up, the people who are saying, no, 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 don't do security, you can't secure AI, are already being left out in the cold now. And we'll see more and more of that. And we're working with this every day by teaching people to think in security, to think about AI as presenting opportunities for new careers, a new kind of cybersecurity industry. And the people who are saying, no, don't do that, who really they're just using ChatGPT as another Google, they're out of luck.
Yeah. We actually have a question from the audience, and that is, what are some recommendations on how we could begin building our skills, integrating cybersecurity with AI and automation?
From what I've seen up until now, guys, the CMMC standard is the best. You will see ISO 42000 and you will see the AI Act on the European front. They are more theoretical, not that great at securing. And start like you would learn anything in this world. Just ask ChatGPT to break it down into small chunks and feed it to you every day for half an hour, and you will be just fine. Don't be afraid to ask questions to your colleagues. From what I've seen, usually engineers are amazing at being teachers. So find that colleague that already has some knowledge and pester him.
Yeah, I love that, and we'll add to it. So the MITRE ATT&CK framework and like the OWASP Top 10 and the resources that they put out, if you just throw those into your favorite LLMs and say, help me create a study guide, a plan, and learn these things and learn them with integrating AI and building out those automations, it can create a beautiful and structured plan for you based off of those frameworks that experts use.
I think the thing that's helped me learn the most over the years, if I want to do something very technical, is just to jump in and try it out. And there's so many tutorials. I was focused on programming in my last job, and there are so many open source tools that you can employ. You can run them on your own desktop or laptop or your cloud compute if that's what you've got access to. Jump in and try them out. And if you find out that you're walking through a tutorial and it's a little too high level for you, then I try and break it down and learn the next thing lower. Another thing I would suggest is Coursera and Udemy and some of those other kind of free online courses, to step into the kind of, take a class to learn it type of realm. It's not specifically necessary if you're finding out you're getting, what ChatGPT is kind of recommending for you as a building block. If you find that's really meeting your need, then that's probably the simplest way to go about it, as suggested. But if you find out that you kind of want the more basic thing, you want somebody to walk it through, you don't forget about those online free university sources. Those can be fantastic.
And then there's the communities. There's the online community such as Discord, and then just what the Karl said. And I love, like the NIST. NIST has so many free tools out there. The cybersecurity framework. That's a great framework, period. But if somebody's getting into it, you utilize that, ChatGPT, but also local security groups as well, ISACA, ISC squared, places like that. And just, the Discord channels are great. People are friendly and they're ready to help as long as you're eager to learn.
I would suggest finding local people to work with regularly. Find one or two friends and make them friends. And yes, definitely use AI to design a tailored program. I like using the SMART goals framework, specific, measurable, etc. Look up SMART goals. because you can use that as a prompting framework. I've done that. I've actually did a webinar on it back in January. If you look for me, you might find it, where I demonstrate how to use that. Always make sure that one of the clauses, I have no money. And the reason you do that, whether you have money or not, is the best stuff on the available is free, at least in terms of like the initial stages. You eventually get to the point where if you have, if you've exhausted that stuff and you want to save a lot of time and you have more money than time, where hiring people to coach you makes sense, but beware the easy solutions. Avoid the games, and I'm going to name names. Try Hack Me and Hack the Box are a waste of time and money for most people. Avoid spending more than $20 on an LLM, right? You can spend more. I do. I use the fancy ones, right? But if you're just learning, you're better off struggling. The thing is, when you start to struggle enough, you're going to want to quit. That means it's working. So work with your friends and keep each other on track. And if you do that, and if you commit, 2, 4, 6 hours a day, 7 days a week, you might succeed.
So, Peter, you just said the magical word free. Guys, just get a job, an office job, any job. It will come with a Google address with free anything you want. You can use their AI to learn. And also, look at your favorite influencer. I just went now to an influencer party, and they were having $200 vouchers that nobody was taking because people didn't have the guts to just go and ask for AWS, for example, for hacking and so on. So ask your local influencer, do you have free stuff for me? Because they might just have. I think all of us receive a lot of free stuff and we don't use them. So make use of your influencers.
That's actually perfect because, I wanted to say our chat is blowing up with questions. So we're going to start lightning around these a bit. And we too have an offering because we want to bring more people into our community. So we welcome, there's more information on that in the chat. So we're giving away vouchers as well. So we want to make sure everybody, there's so much free stuff out there. Absolutely. And here, we have these amazing speakers. So let's go to our next question. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. My question is, how can job seekers stand out in cybersecurity hiring process, especially those from non-traditional backgrounds?
Meet people in person. Don't rely on LinkedIn for anything except the start. You use LinkedIn to find people, and then you meet them. That's why, my organization sponsors meetups. Why? Because people are saying, well, how do I meet people? And we're like, okay, we'll show you. We'll get you together. But again, keep it at low cost, keep it local, right? Deepfakes don't work in person. They don't, right? By the way, return to office is a great, I work from home. This is my spare bedroom. But you will have so much more impact in terms of your networking in the community if you meet people for coffee, if you go to the meetings, if you reach out your hand out with questions that are not, how do I get a job, but rather, how can I learn? How can I be like you? How did you learn what you learned, right? That's how I started. I've never asked a piece of career advice in my life, for me, never. 28 years. But I have often asked, how do you do what you do, and why do you enjoy it?
For me, the saving grace was taking a lot more in my job than I was supposed to do. So if you see some tasks that smell like cybersecurity, take them, do them as good as you can, and then put them in your CV. Because the problem now is nobody wants to hire somebody that has no experience, and how can you get experience if nobody wants to hire you? So grab some experience from whatever you can. And even if you're not doing a cybersecurity related job, try to grab some tasks that are on hand. For example, physical security. Even that, you checked this, you did that, you looked over the ISO, you look over the SOC 2 controls, ask your IT guy, do you have something for me? And learn that stuff in the beginning, read some frameworks, as we've talked before, and then Peter was super spot on. Try to meet people. What I did was I volunteered to do anything for them, from grabbing coffee to writing reports, which everybody hates. And this is how I got my first jobs.
I'd like to
volunteer.
To pivot off of Yeah, I'd like to pivot off that a little bit for a second. When you talk to people about their jobs, don't just talk to security people. Keep an open mind and recognize that there is a big world outside of security. And a lot of us have kind of a thing for security, maybe even a talent for it. But like, I think about back to the old timers. Like, I used to work for Marcus Random, who's people for largely forgotten him, but he was the inventor of the proxy firewall. He was the first webmaster of the White House at 16. He is a legend in the space. And I asked him one time, this was like in 2020, 2002, you know, Marcus, what would you have done if you weren't doing security today? He started Network Flight Recorder too. And he said, you know, this was never my plan. I really wanted to build MUDs, multi-user dungeons. Again, it's in Wikipedia. He said, where my heart really lied, and to some degree still is high performance computing. I got into security because it just needed to get done. And then people started buying it. And if you want to be of service, which is the response I get a lot of the time when I say, well, why are you interested in security? If being of service is what you want, like, security isn't that great a place for it. Find out what kind of service you want to do and who you care about. And you might find that what you really love is web development. You may find that you want to be a software developer. You may find that you want to be a project manager. One of the best careers, I think, going forward, going back to the original question, is product and project managers, particularly product managers, are currently in higher demand than people know, and will be increasingly so because somebody has to understand the problems to vibe code them out beforehand, right? And so just recognize that there is a place to be had all over the place for people who have a little bit of security in them and can bring that to some other domain, whether it's IT or not.
I wanted to jump in and recommend, we talked a little bit about meeting people in person, meeting folks that can help you along the way, being part of the local community. I wanted to put in a plug for some of the ways to do that. There are security conferences around the world happening all the time. You can Google them pretty easily. One that's probably in a community near you is the B-Sides conference, and you can meet people involved in all kinds of aspects. It's primarily a security focused conference, but it's not just security focused. It's like nerds of all kinds of stripes and even, you know, folks on the policy, sales side, administration side, all the rest. And of course, there's a couple big ones coming up in Vegas pretty soon, DEF CON and Black Hat and such. I also wanted to go back to the original question and say, you know, one way you can stand out in the hiring process is to not stand out negatively by doing just a little bit of research about your target. Just like in anything, you want to do a little research on your target before you start. Make sure that you craft your communications, whatever format they are, to be specific to that, or at least be relevant to them in hiring. And I was hiring for government jobs, but I suspect it's true in many places. In hiring, you get a ton of submissions that are totally irrelevant. They look like they're for a different job, and so automatically you discount all those. Don't put yourself in the discard pile immediately.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We have another question, and that is, what's the level of knowledge expected from freshers from a cybersecurity perspective? Like, do I need to learn SOC, pen test, cloud, GRC, and integrate AI in one resume?
So you might need nothing, depending on the level of the person that's hiring. And I've seen some really interesting hires in my time. It also depends what job you are gunning for. So if you gun for something that is more on the audit side, like I am, and risk side, you might need to know a little more legal. If you're gunning for something pen test-wise, you might need a little more practice on that side. But again, the level depends a lot on the person that takes the interview and on what they need. There are organizations that only need an ISO, and the level is near the floor. So don't worry about that. Just try.
Yeah, there are so many different career paths that you could go into. And I would say foundational knowledge, which, as mentioned, you can get on Coursera and YouTube and, you know, all of these free resources. But honing in and figuring out, you know, what is most interesting to you is going to be beneficial. And I know a lot of SOC analysts that, know little about industrial control systems. And the thought that you have to know everything isn't realistic.
Yeah, and I recommend starting with the technical background if you're fresh coming out, because GRC, of what I'm doing primarily now, you have to be able to keep them honest. You can't just take them at their word. So I have some networking experience. I started out as a pen tester. So when I talk to the folks doing the pen test, I know what should be done and what shouldn't be done. So that's really helped me as well. So I would definitely, but just like what's been said, there's so many fields. And I wouldn't recommend studying to be a SOC analyst, GRC, and then a cloud engineer. That's a lot. You're going in a few directions. I would look into what you're really passionate about, get a technical background in it, and then just build your network and volunteer.
I would start one step before that. Get an office job, any office job, and then find the IT people. If they're security people, fine. Probably won't find them at first. Find the IT people and talk to them and get to know them. And my first IT job was at Earthlink in 1995. I was doing like tech support. I became a tech writer because I was a good typist and I was good at lists. I parlayed that eventually into a tech writing job at Citi, where for 6 weeks, and I wound up staying there a lot longer than that, I built the SOC. The first SOC I worked in, I built. And why? Because I was curious, because I would say, what should I be learning? What should I be reading? And they would tell me books like, Stevenson's TCP/IP Illustrated Protocols. They said, buy a book on writing K-shell. So I got those books and I brought them in the office and I put them on the desk and I would read them when I was waiting for something. And one day somebody came along and said, hey, do you read those? I said, yes, I do. And he kept walking. And the next day I was given a project. And I forgot what it was. It was like about transferring a file from here to there. But I proved that I was reliable and I was eager to learn. And I cared about what they cared about. People want to work with people who care what they care about. And in the end, like I could have wound up as as Unix systems administrator for a career. I could have wound up as a project manager. I could have stayed in that SOC. There are people there who were 30 years later. But the key is like, you've got to find what you care enough to sacrifice for it. And you don't know when you're new what you're willing to spend 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day for the next 5 years on. You just don't know. One thing I do know is that we all eventually become T-shaped. So go to the search engine of choice or an LM and say, what does he mean by T-shaped? And then say, help, and then ask it, what question should I answer for you, LLM? That would help me identify what I should go deep on and where I should stay narrow. But before you get into all that stuff, just get an office job. Most security and most IT is meetings, conversations, documentation. It's shocking how little of it is actually technical when you're like in terms of time.
Which leads us to the next question of a person who's coming in with excellent industry experience and top cybersecurity certifications, but still facing problems finding the correct role. What do you suggest?
Refining the email. A lot of the times, the email, the CV, a lot of the times the CV tells a story of another job. It's something that Karl mentioned prior. So when you try to apply for the position that you want, you have to present yourself just like already having it in a way. And try to show the people that you can fulfill their specific needs that they have at the time. Don't try to show potential because nobody has the time to look over potential. That is the biggest mistake that I have seen, usually. And this is why the CVs never make it to the hiring manager. They usually get lost somewhere in between. So put your CV and put the job description in your favorite LLM and ask for it to create a CV that is tailored to the job that you actually want.
And I think network. I feel like finding
Absolutely.
jobs now is more about the people behind the role, because most resumes are just being lost in the bots, not even able to be found. So it is connecting with people, reaching out, going to those events, being on Discord, and being a part of these communities that way.
The best jobs are filled before they're posted, and they get posted because somebody at HR says you have to post it.
Absolutely true.
For example, I have now 3 jobs that can't be filled. Well, we have interviewed almost 50 people now, and the level of the knowledge is too low. The offers that we made were rejected. So the problem is that the CVs don't get to the hiring manager. I'm sure there are people there. This is what I had a meeting with HR on exactly this subject. The knowledge is there. I'm sure the people are there, but the CVs don't make it to us. So to me, that's the biggest problem I see. And that's a problem in the technical field. So the jobs in case are for the ops, the operational side. But also if I would want to hire in the team that I lead right now, I would find it difficult because it's just hard to receive a good CV from a person that actually wants the job. So refine the CV to make it pass through the damn scanners.
Yeah, there are a lot of people want the job. Hardly anyone wants to do the job. That is the dilemma.
We have another interesting question here. What are the panel's thought of effectively enforcing cybersecurity standards across public, private sectors, especially with evolving AI threats?
Okay, this is a can of worms. So when you look at the standards that we have now, they are specifically made to be vague so that they can fit really anything from a startup to a huge mammoth. So when you want to actually enforce them, then you have to have a million talks with the network team that says, okay, where is that written down that I'm not allowed to do? And you can't show it black and white. Then you go to the developers and have the same talk. So actually enforcing the standard is a very different story of negotiation, mostly. In the European Union, we also have NIS2, and we needed to wait for clarifications 3 times because the law was made by lawyers and it has to be applied by engineers. So there's a huge fracture between the two sides. Again, you can look at the law and say you are compliant, but are you really secure? So to me, it's mostly a difference of, are you pen testing enough? Are you red teaming enough? Are you actually trying to be secure, or are you just trying to check some boxes?
Yeah, I always heard compliance and security aren't the same thing, and they totally go for different things. And back to AI, I would do policies, user training, and technical controls. Sorry, Karl, go ahead.
No, I agree with both of you strongly. I would also say, I've seen an improvement in security standard, enforcement and transparency by kind of modern, to kind of dive into software issues specifically, like modern configuration as code, infrastructure as code systems. A lot of the issues that I've seen from deploying code into the public sector, but I suspect it's the same in the private sector, stem from human mistakes or human customizations during deployment processes, or human created or handmade custom configurations during these processes. And those aren't auditable. You can't go back and see what happened, where the mistakes are. They're often not really recorded anywhere well. But some of those modern kind of infrastructure as code, configuration as code, looking at like stuff that deploys across Kubernetes automatically. That's all documented. It's maybe part of a GitOps flow or something like that, so you can go back and check it all out. And in the government, like, we're typically the last to adopt things. So maybe the private sector has been doing it amazing for all these years. But I think on this one, we're not too far behind them, and so at least some of that stuff looks bright to me in the future. But maybe I'm naive.
I'm finding myself parsing this question and notice and stuck on across public, private. Public and private are really different. If you're not in doing public sector, ignore it. If you're not in private sector, ignore it. Like the threat actors are different. The tech tends to be different. The cultures are really different. I think Karl and John could probably have more to say about this. I stopped doing government 12 years ago because I just couldn't take the culture and the pace. It's not to cast. I don't want to cast aspersions on the people who work in that space. You have my respect. I also know that, like, you really have to specialize it because it's a different beast. And I think there are people who would look outward, because if it's an in-out thing, it would say, like, yeah, I don't do private sector. You're crazy out there. The other thing that's interesting is the idea of evolving IT threats, I don't think the IT threats are evolving that much. I don't think that security itself varies much over time. IT does, business does, society does. Economic incentives on the part of attackers change. Economic incentives and disincentives to do security on the part of the buyers change. But if we're talking about effective enforcement, it starts with one, policy. What is policy? Policy is a statement of management intent. That's what I learned in my ISACA training, and I think it's true. Policy must be aligned with guidelines and standards. How do you enforce them? You check them, and then you have incentives and disincentives for following those standards, because we don't really enforce, we persuade. So you have to sell. You have to be able to sell, make people want to abide by these standards. Nice thing about standards is they remove a lot of the decision making. So for me, that's the best part. Like, you can either make it up as you go along, or you can follow the standard and the decisions are made for you.
We have another question from the audience, and that is, what do you think are the biggest cybersecurity challenges organization will face in the next 5 to 10 years?
Money. Everything costs a lot. So it really depends on how secure do you need to be. So if you're in finance, that level increases a lot. But the budgets I'm seeing are bubbling up from year to year. So if when I started, maybe 2 or 3 million were enough for a bank of, I don't know, 7,000 employees, now we have a budget of 15 million, and we're looking at it, it might not be enough for this year. So the money is just getting crazy when it comes to protection.
I don't know if I could give you 5 to 10 minutes, the way things are changing in the world. 5 to 10 years, forget about it. You got 2. That's your planning horizon. That's all you got. The one thing I will say is that if the trends continue, insider threat is going to be far and away the most important issue, because we're seeing fewer and fewer people with more and more power compensated better and better. Look at the Frontier Labs and the crazy money that they're laying out, right? And companies like NVIDIA. And then you have a lot of people who are being left out in the cold, to some degree, due to their unwillingness to actually accept the coming reality and the present reality. But you're going to find a lot of people who have skills and can't put bread on the table, and some of them still have access. So insider threat becomes really important. The external attackers, it's just a matter of volume. It really is. That's all it is.
Yeah, and AI will certainly increase that volume. Looking at like adversarial attacks, and I think one of you mentioned vibe coding and just the slop that is coming out from, I play with it too, and I'm like, this isn't good. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm having fun playing with this. But then also just IoT and what's happening even with like wearable devices and all of the data that we have on our person and our phones, and just securing that data, and everything is harder, with AI, and easier to a certain extent too.
I think we've only begun to see the rise of this kind of scamming and personalized phishing that's enabled by AI. And so when I think of like AI increases in attacks, like I'm sure that on the very technical side, we will see some changes and some increase there, and some increase in volume and all that stuff. But I also think we're seeing those the video feeds of a person that looks and sounds exactly like the person that you expect to be on the phone with. The other day I saw a TikTok. I was on YouTube, I promise, but I saw a little TikTok about somebody that was. Her husband was called up. A person on the other end of the phone explained that they had her captured. And what I thought was, if that scammer was not able to use her likeness, her individual likeness in this scam call, then they will be able to in the next scam call, because she's put out a video on YouTube and TikTok. And the more of these kind of, I'm speaking here today. If anyone were to record me, you could replay my likeness and target an organization that I'm a part of, or my loved ones, with false information. So I think we've only begun to see the start of that. I think it can only increase, and then we'll have this challenge of authentication and things in new ways that we haven't had to think of before. And I think that it's really attacking the human in that case instead of attacking the cyber system. So I think you get a little bit of insider threat there. You get a little bit of people targeting your insiders as well.
I think applying best practices. Thanks. Applying best practices, all this new technology. Just what Karl's saying about the deepfakes. I've talked to my family and we have a code word. If you ever get a deepfake from me and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm in jail, send something to me, I'm going to say some silly word that no one else knows because we talked about it in a park. And it just, but what the Karl said, like apply best practices to current AI. Like I'll end with this part. I was talking to some senior pen testers. They said that they used to file all these paperwork, rules of engagement. You talk to lawyers for a week even before getting started, but the same organization had no problem letting an AI tool run through it with admin root rights. That's crazy to me. So best practices. Thanks.
We'll jump in our next one. What are the most in-demand roles in cybersecurity right now, and how can someone prepare for them? And I think we've touched a little bit on, they go technical, they go non-technical.
If it's in demand now, there isn't time to prepare. The time to prepare was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Don't chase what's hot now with something that requires preparation. I assume that's embedded in that question. So it's more a matter of like what's coming up, and the best way to deal with that is find out where your resources are, and they're going to be local.
Just start, just like Peter said prior, get a desk job, any desk job, just start somewhere. Don't wait for the job to be in demand. Don't wait for it to be cool. Do it. You will discover there what's needed. You will also have the best chance because you are already there. So they will be more inclined to move you to a new position than hire somebody new. So just start somewhere. Don't wait for the perfect thing.
Yeah. Learn the foundations if that's where you're at.
Yeah. And you never finish with the foundations. You just layer them. The nice thing about foundations is they're stable. Right? Linux Systems Administration is stable. TCP/IP, we're still on v4. We're supposed to be on 6. Oh well, right? It's stable. Those will always serve you. Learning to love the questions, I think, is the most important thing. And when you're new, you don't have any answers. Nobody wants to hear your answers because you don't know anything. You don't have any experience to speak to. But you can, if you're a generator of questions, you are always valuable to do that.
Thank you. Another question is, in today's job market, what are some effective ways for career changers to transition into cybersecurity roles?
Take the skills you have now, match them with whatever is needed, reformulate the CV, and apply like a crazy person. That's the key.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't transition to cybersecurity right now. I'm in the cybersecurity job business. It's a terrible time. I'll talk about this in my one-on-one session. I think this is a very bad time to get into cybersecurity. It has been for the past 7 quarters, and I don't know if it's ever going to come back. And I lived through the big cycles. I know what it looks like when it starts to, things start to tick up. We haven't seen that tick up. I don't see it coming. Like I said, there's a big world out there around cyber. There's cyber in it, in every domain, in the same way that there's IT in every domain. And if you want to do cyber, you can do cyber from a different perspective. There's nothing wrong with that.
For example, in my team, what we are heavily training now is the use of AI. Not how to secure AI, but the use and automation with AI. And this is what my team has been doing for the last 6 months. So we have identified tasks that can be successfully done by AI. We have looked at how the AI works with it and do that. So try to find something that is in this split, AI and cyber, because this will make sure you will have a job in 5 years. If you try to go specifically to cybersecurity, again, I have the same feeling as Peter does. the jobs will shrink. It's normal. Every job will shrink. So it's not something that is specific to cybersecurity. So learn to be super prepared for the new market that's coming, and just learn how to use AI. Make it your best friend. Talk with it 30 minutes every day.
I feel like if you're looking for new roles in cyber too, getting on hackathons or capture the flags. And if you're really good at those, there are organizations that are looking for people that are really good at those, and they will do in-office training on them. I'll also say I love what's happening in the quantum space. And I think if there was one field that you would be interested in and lean into, learning those foundations while also learning everything you can about, quantum resistance, PQC, whatever that one is, and getting into some of those emerging fields.
That's great. I love this next question because I think it sort of rounds it out. Is what human skills do you think are still must-haves in cybersecurity, even with all the new AI tools?
Teamwork.
Inquisitive.
Punctuality.
Yeah.
Like seriously, punctuality, getting shit done on time, meeting commitments, submitting timesheets on time, making sure they're correct. Like most of success in business is utterly mundane and very rare. Very hard to find people who can do the basics of business. And then a mediocre tech mind can do very well if it's affixed to someone who does the basics. Never don't do the basics, as Alex Hormozy says, right? Somebody else has read Alex Hormozy, I see.
For me, it's being a problem solver and being able to finish tasks. This was the biggest problem I had in all the teams I went in. So if somebody had a problem, they would listen to the ticket and then say, oh, it's not my problem, and close the ticket. That person still has the problem, and you didn't send them to your friend that can solve the problem. So what's up with that? And I needed to have this conversation. They're like, it's not my job. Yeah, it's not your job, but how would you feel if you would have a problem and nobody would help you? Those people are in sales. They don't know how tech works, how the backend works. So they only have you as a guide. That's the biggest issue. So not being able to have some empathy to your colleagues that actually work and do a job just like you do. And the second one is being able to finish projects. This has been the biggest problem ever. No matter how big or small the task, it would always be pending at 70%, and I would need to swoop in and actually close. And that's the clear way that will keep you mediocre for the rest of your career, no matter what you do. So being able to take something and deliver it completely successfully, ingest feedback, adjust, and do a great job, that will always be in fashion, no matter where you work.
Yeah, the art of the pivot, and in having those soft skills, but then also loving learning and continuous learning, and making sure that you continue to evolve and figure out how you learn and the way that you absorb information the best, and then lean into that.
And doing the work that nobody else wants to, and being willing to back up other people. I remember early in my career, the single point of failure always bothered me, and it still does. And we had somebody out there one day, and we were at a work stoppage. The office looked silly. I made it a point when they came back. I sat with her. I got up to speed so that wouldn't happen again. Just being willing to help others and take on the work that other people try to avoid, because it'll pay off. Like it's been mentioned a few times in this panel. People notice that. Thanks.
You don't have to be very good. Like if no one wants to perform the task, as long as you're honest about your abilities, you can suck at it. That's okay, right? And you're early on in your career, you're going to do the dirt work. You're going to do the stuff that nobody else wants to do, and that's your function. You're not going to get paid well for it either, and that's okay. Because early in your career, it's all about learning the things that are in between the cracks between the courses and the books and all that. That's where experience is valuable. That's why we need it, because you can only teach like 10% of what you need to know. The rest of it, you just have to be present for, you have to listen for, and you have to also like learn to love what other people do. It doesn't matter if they're tech or not. Salespeople are fascinating. They love to teach. Business managers are fascinating, love to teach. Project managers love to teach. And if you demonstrate curiosity about what they do, they will want to work with you because they'll want to help you.
Well, thank you so much. We're gonna have a last question. If you had to build a 90-day action plan for someone trying to enter the field today, what would be on it?
I'll give you something tactical for managers.
Yep.
I used to do back when I worked at bigger companies. Actually, I'll name names. I used to work for Optiv. I built the SIM practice there. I came in as a consultant. And in my first meeting with my manager, I said, I need you to send email introductions to 5 people you think I should meet. And she did. And then I talked to those people and I said to each of them, give me 5, I'd like you to make introductions to 5 people. These are the people I met with so far. Who else should I meet? And over the course of a couple of weeks, I'd met half the company. At that time, it was like 600 people. I wasn't half the company. It was a lot of people. But just meeting people face to face for 15 minutes and asking them, what do you do and how can me in my role help you, will lay the foundation for your internal networking job that will serve me for years. I wound up being director of SOC and built a pretty respectable team and eventually became like a free range director because everybody was like, I know him. I've talked to him. He seems to be willing to do stuff.
For me, it's take Idiot's Guide on whatever you want to learn. So just take Idiot's Guide, read it, and try to apply what's in there. I see an epidemic of people purchasing everything. So going out, spending $1,000 on stuff, putting it on the desk, and then considering the job done. Buy one book, spend $30, 30 euros, read that book 5 times, and try to implement as much as you can for the first 90 days. So to me, that would be the best plan. Don't try to overdo it. Don't be that person that starts 55 diets in one day. Just start something and get it done.
I've been in that role a couple of times in my Air Force career. Up to a new assignment. They've given me a title, they've given me a desk, and then I'm new to the organization, and they're not really sure exactly how I fit in, what they need me to do. Everything was kind of kicking along before I got there, and so it'll just continue kicking along after I get there, even if I kind of don't do anything. And so then I've had to create that kind of like 90-day plan to get involved, to get some wins for myself, to feel motivated and feel good about my job and my professional career, make sure I want to stick around here, but also to get involved with the office to make sure that they think I'm worthwhile and worth any of their time. Something that I've done to do that is, in that period where nobody has any real expectations of me, I just walk around and kind of like what was suggested, I try and meet people, I ask them questions. Sometimes I ask them, what can I do in my role to help you? But I'll also just ask them, since I'm an engineer, like, what can I do? What problems are you having now? Show me some of the problems that you're having now. Oh, let me help you solve them. Can I take on this piece of it? Oh, your Excel spreadsheet doesn't automatically format. I know how to fix that. Let me fix that for you. And then I'm going to put it into SharePoint lists, just the simplest stuff, but getting that ball rolling and then keeping it rolling. Eventually expectations build up and you can figure out how you're supposed to fit in your role. That's worked for me in the past.
Yeah, I would, using your favorite LLM again, put in here is what my goal is. Here is what I want to look like in those 90 days, and do research on what are the communities that I should be a part of? What are the newsletters I should, subscribe to? What are the things that I should do? LinkedIn I should reach out to, and have it help you. And I think as long as you're prompting it well with what your goals are, it can give you a really great guide. And then the hardest part is just doing it, blocking the time and getting it done.
Yeah, I would say start learning on your own, YouTube, Discord, your favorite LLM, volunteer, network, and looking to getting a mentor. It's been huge for me. I enjoy working with junior folks. I've learned so much from those experiences. I think right there is a great start. Get involved. Don't wait for someone to open a door for you. Open that door.
Okay. Are there any other tips that you might want to share with the audience as of right now?
I have a question for John. What's that word you were talking about?
The word mentor, volunteer,
No,
learn
the
what?
secret passcode.
Oh, no. It's, yeah.
You said it was a silly word, though, right?
Oh, it was a silly word. I'm going to change it. It was like purple elephant riding a bike. I got to call my wife right after this. So actually, I got to go talk to her, not call her.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct horse battery staple.
exactly. Something like that. SpongeBob eating marshmallows, could be anything. Just something they won't guess or can't find on LinkedIn or Discord, your favorite social media.
So, John, just leaning into this, I have a colleague that's leaving the team, and I've created something surprisingly scary, even for myself. We've put all her emails and every communication that she had into Notebook LLM, and we've created a copy of her to ask her questions after she leaves. And it's scary because it uses information that the LLM just added in between to fill in. This is why even if the information is not necessarily easily to find, make sure it's something completely disconnected from your life, because
Absolutely.
it can actually be filled in by a good LLM.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, your third grade basketball team is not a good answer. Yep.
Exactly. To us, it was scary.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you everyone for that information and coming on here. We're going to go into the next channel, and that is the next generation professionals. We do have some focused session with John, Larisa, Kate, and Peter later on. So thank you so much, Karl, that you have been part of this panel, and hope to have you in one focused session soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.